You have been alone in a room full of people. And that silence, that invisible wall between you and everyone else, that is the real enemy. Not failure, not weakness, loneliness. The kind that makes you wonder if anyone would notice if you just disappeared. And the world keeps moving, and you keep pretending you are fine. But you are not fine. And there is one man in anime history who understood that better than anyone. His name is Levi Ackerman. He was not born a legend. He was not handed power, or a throne, or a destiny wrapped in gold. He was born in the underground, a place where sunlight was a rumor and hope was a joke. His mother was a woman named Kucho Ackerman. She was not celebrated. She was discarded. And the first thing Levi ever learned about this world was that it does not care about you. He grew up in filth, surrounded by crime, surviving on scraps and sheer stubbornness. Every day was a negotiation between staying alive and losing your soul. And yet, something in him refused to break. Not because the world was kind to him, but because he decided, without anyone telling him to, that he would not bow. Think about that for a second. No mentor showed up early enough. No crowd cheered for him. No one pointed at him and said, "That kid is going to be something." Lidalins, that vow. He was invisible to the world. And maybe right now, so are you. Maybe you are the person nobody texts first. Maybe you are grinding in silence and nobody is watching. And that silence has a weight to it. It sits on your chest at 2 a.m. when everyone else seems to have it figured out. It makes you question whether the effort is even worth it. Because what is the point of becoming something if there is no one there to witness it? Levi lost people. Not once. Again and again and again. Isabel and Furlan, the only two people who ever made him feel like he belonged somewhere, were gone. Taken by a world that had always been indifferent to his pain. And then, Erwin, the one man whose vision gave Levi's violence a purpose. Gone. Petra, Oluo, Gunter, Eld, soldiers who trusted him with their lives. Every single one of them, taken. Do you know what that does to a person? When every person you let yourself care about is ripped away, you stop opening doors. You stop letting people in. Because every time you did, the world punished you for it. And Levi, this man made of stone and discipline, felt every single loss. He just never let it stop his blade. Because what else do you do when the grief is so deep it has no bottom? You move. You fight. You keep going. Not because it gets easier, but because stopping means their deaths meant nothing. And then came the moment the world tried to finish what loneliness had started. Levi, battered, outmatched, surrounded, faced a beast titan that should not have been survivable. Zeke, the beast titan, towered over the battlefield like death itself had taken a form. He commanded an army of titans with a scream. He had wiped out entire squads before Levi ever drew his blade. And Levi came for him anyway. Not with backup, not with a plan that guaranteed survival. With a promise he made to the dead. That is the kind of man Levi Ackerman is. He does not fight because he thinks he will win. He fights because he has decided that surrender is not in his vocabulary. And in that moment, blades out, body broken, alone, something shifted. He moved through a field of titans like lightning cutting through fog. Every movement was surgical. Every breath was a calculation. There was no hesitation. There was no fear. There was only the mission, and the memory of every person who died so he could still be standing. He reached Zeke and tore through him like the world owed him that moment. Not because he was superhuman, but because his pain had been sharpened into something unstoppable. Levi once said, "I want to do something with the time I have left, something I won't regret." Read that again. Not something that makes him famous. Not something that earns him applause. Something he will not regret. That is the turning point that nobody talks about when they talk about becoming great. It is not the moment you start winning. It is the moment you stop doing things for other people's approval. It is the moment you fight for something internal, something no audience can give you and no loss can take. Levi was never going to be loved by the masses. He was cold, blunt, and surrounded by a wall that kept most people out. But inside that wall was a loyalty so fierce it terrified people. He chose a few, and he gave everything for those few. That is not loneliness as a weakness. That is loneliness transformed into selective, ferocious love. And that is what this video is really about. Not fighting giants. Fighting the lie that your loneliness makes you less than. Here is what nobody will say to you directly, so I will. Some people are built for the crowd, and some people are built for the war. And the ones built for the war are almost always alone. Not because something is wrong with them, but because the standard they hold themselves to is one most people cannot match. You feel alone because you are operating on a frequency most people cannot hear, and you have been treating that like a defect, when it is actually a signal. Think about every version of yourself you have outgrown, every room that no longer fits you, every friendship that faded because you stopped pretending to be small. That is not failure. That is evolution. Levi never tried to be liked. He tried to be effective. He said, the only time a soldier should open his eyes wide is when he is about to die, so he can face it head on. He was not afraid of the end. He was afraid of wasting the time before it. And right now, somewhere in you, that same fear lives. The fear that you will get to the end of your life and realize you spent it waiting to feel less alone before you started. Stop waiting. The loneliness is not going to disappear before the work begins. The loneliness is the beginning of the work. Nobody is coming to save you. Nobody is going to show up and make it easier before you earn it. And every second you spend waiting for that rescue is a second you are lying on the ground while the Titan walks toward you. Get up. Do you understand what it took for Levi to move the way he moved in that fight? It was not talent. It was decades of pain that he refused to let become an excuse. Every person who left him made his grip tighter. Every loss made his next move sharper. He alchemized loneliness into lethal precision. And you, sitting with your grief, your silence, your invisible war, you have that same capacity. The question is whether you will use it or let it use you. Your loneliness is either going to be your prison or your forge. You decide that right now. Not tomorrow. Not when life gets easier. Right now, in the quiet, in the dark, in the alone, you make the call. Because humanity's strongest did not become that in a crowd. He became that in the underground. Alone. And that is where you are right now. In your underground. And everything that comes next depends on what you do in this moment. Levi never asked the world to understand him. He just refused to let the world define him. That is the lesson. Not that you need to stop feeling alone, but that you need to stop letting the feeling stop you. Move through the loneliness like Levi moved through that field of titans. With precision, with purpose, with a name in your heart you are fighting for. Even if that name is just your own. Drop a comment below. Tell me what you are still fighting for. Because this community is built for the ones doing it alone, and you have never been as alone as you think.